Dr. Austin, lead us in our invocation and pledge allegiance.
Let's stand. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, Lord God, it's again and another time, Lord, that we come before your presence, Lord, in the humblest manner that we know how. Lord, first, we just want to give you the thanks and give you the glory for taking care of us through the storm and bringing us to this point. And Father, we ask you to look down on those that were less fortunate than we are, and that you would bless them and encourage their hearts. And Lord, please bless us as we go throughout this meeting, Lord, that we may do those things that are pleasing to the individuals of Jasper County, but most of all, Lord, that are pleasing to you. Father, we thank you for all your many blessings. In your Son Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, and indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Austin. The next thing on our agenda is motion to approve the agenda for this afternoon.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Jenkins, second by Dr. Buckley. Ready for question? Hearing none, all in favor of such motion, let it known by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda, approval of the minute from the July 16, 2024 meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
A motion by Mr. Jenkins, do I hear a second? Second. Second by Mrs. Ferguson. Ready for question?
Question.
All in favor, let it know by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Chairman Pinckney, I'd just like to ask that you note that I did not vote because I was not here at that meeting. Okay? Thank you. Thank you, sir.
New business. A zone map amendment, community commercial, tax map number 03800-0600, 017 and 03800-060202. Ms. Wagner, would you bring us up to date on?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Chairman and Planning Commission members. The applicant requests a zoning map amendment to have two properties designated as community commercial. The subject properties consist of a total of 2 acres, 1 acre each, and are identified by tax map number 0380006-017 and 0380006-202, located along Levy Road in Hardyville. The subject properties are currently zoned residential. While one property has a house on it, the other property is vacant. The applicant would like to remove the house and develop the property for a contractor's office with supporting infrastructure. According to the 2018 Jasper County Comprehensive Plan, the future land use map identifies this area as rural transition, with the intersection of Levy Road and Highway 315 being identified as a hamlet. Rural transition areas are located in southern Jasper County and will be under pressure to develop within the foreseeable future. Any development should be respectful and complement the scale and character of the area. The comprehensive plan also states a special area plan should be developed for the Levy hamlet, since it is most at risk of losing its character in the face of new development. The adjacent parcels are zoned residential and community commercial, with the city limits of Hardyville nearby. Adjacent land uses are residential.
Those 2 adjacent parcels, which would be the reason for the rezoning. So the main goal would just to be extend what's already there and not really change much of the existing, I guess, use of that area, or change much about what is going to be in that area, and just kind of expand out from that central node at that intersection with the community commercial, and kind of expand that development out away from that node a little bit. We don't really believe that this will change much of the overall scope and impact the study that's going to be done in the Levy area, due to the fact that most of that area is kind of leaning towards community commercial, and it seems to be moving away from that node anyways. We feel like it falls in line with what could be found from that study, so we believe now would be a perfect time to go ahead and change that zoning.
Okay. Ms. Ferguson, do you have any questions for Mr. Jenkins?
None, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Rock?
None of this time.
Dr. Foster?
Yes, Lisa, the piece there, it's some community commercial adjacent to the one that they want to rezone. How did that get in there?
That was a rezoning that we did years ago. Before
Did we
we were.
skip over the, this other piece here that's residential?
Sir?
Is this piece next to it, this residential between the blue on one side and blue on the other side?
Yes, that's correct.
That's residential?
Yes, sir.
So my question, I guess, is how do we skip that piece and go over to?
Probably just, you know, when you look at it, not so sure we should have. But there was, the community commercial across the street hasn't changed, so it basically is contiguous to community commercial.
Okay. And when we did the community commercial, we made it so many feet off of like the 170 there, right?
Yes, sir. I will say that when the community commercial was done, all of this you see here out on 315, that was done when we adopted the zoning ordinance in November 2007.
Okay. But right now, pretty much it's surrounded by residential except for that small piece there.
Yes, you know, across the street, you do have the community commercial, all the ground is residential. And they're just showing you this aerial map. We really weren't aware of this until we received this application. But this property here, evidently,
Junkyard.
people are living there, but it looks like an illegal junkyard. But we've just reported that to code enforcement. You could take your Google map and look back and see that that property wasn't like that. So
But it
it's
is zone commercial, I mean, residential.
residential.
Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
it is zone residential. They made it into something else, but it's zone residential.
Yes, sir.
Is it a, oh, sorry.
I finished.
Dr. Butler?
Is that a junkyard?
Looks like.
Not the ones they're interested in, but the one beside it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a house, but there are.
Oh, there's just a lot of stuff there. Okay.
No, I'm talking, there's like 30 junk cars in
Oh,
there.
okay.
So in
I'm
other
just-
words,
Go
it's
ahead.
community, it's a residential that
It's junk.
made it into something else. So we really need to,
Yeah, and
go back
that's
and
not
make
really
it-
before you denied, it's just something that's happened. I mean, I guess I'm just saying from their perspective, they're looking next door and saying, this isn't gonna affect them, you know, because,
but it's zone residential until the zoning is changed.
yeah.
And that might be a thought. You might consider the other parcels on that line, and maybe they, like we've done before, maybe they might be considering wanting to rezone their parcels as well. Now I'm finished, I guess.
Okay. I also had concerns regarding what I considered to be jumping over residentially zoned properties to change the zoning on this. And you've pretty much explained how that happened. But given the way we operate now, I really think that the staff decision to postpone the rezoning until after you guys complete that special area plan makes sense. And then we know what we're dealing with, rather than shooting in the dark that it may be something or it may not be. So since we don't know and there is a plan afoot, although it's not in place yet, to me it makes perfect sense to wait a little bit until we know what we're dealing with. But anyway, thank you.
Mr. Lee?
I concur with Dr. Butler. I'm good here. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from any other commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, when I saw that junkyard, Lisa, do we have a junkyard ordinance on the book?
We do, it's in a different, you know, it's in the public nuisance as part of the public nuisance ordinance. We have a section in the zoning code too, but we have amended the code of ordinances for the junkyards.
Yeah, because I'm just amazed, you know, since we have that on the book, how they got the junkyard, how they got this
You'd
to
be surprised what people do.
It's all over Jasper County.
Yep.
There's at least 50 cars.
And that's why,
I was gonna say, I didn't count them.
but that's why county council and members like us in the community need to take things like that seriously. So we won't allow this to be all over.
Yeah, and I mean, that has nothing to do with this application.
Yeah,
at
I know
all.
that, but it's just amazing how you know you got to enforce something on the book and allow property in Jasper County to come to this meeting.
We don't allow it though.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't have eyeballs on everybody's property. And then honestly, around here, you can go to bed one week and go to one neighborhood one week and you go next week and no telling what you find. I mean, I don't understand. I don't know why people do what they do.
Yeah, I'm not accusing anybody, but
Yeah,
I'm saying, you know, since we have laws on the book, it look like there should be somewhere we could get control of this. But I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
Let's stick to it.
yeah.
Mr. Pinckney, could I ask one other question?
Yes.
Are there any houses on the, I know the one next to it has a house on it, but these other 3 lots that are residential, are there homes on those lots?
So there are homes, I'm just gonna run. So this here's the contractor office they're referring to. I mean, basically it was a house, but it's used as a contractor's office. And I probably, sorry, I didn't have the Q Public stuff. I probably should because I can't.
How can they operate a business on
I
that?
don't think nothing's on this piece, but then you have a house here, 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 and it looks like one in this area back here. And there's 2 houses on this property here. A house here.
Are they operating a business on that residential lot?
Not on the residential. Not, I mean, not. Which lot are you talking about?
Oh, that is, I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the zoning
Yeah,
map.
that's
I'm
right.
sorry.
So, right.
Okay, I got you, okay.
So,
Okay,
Ms. Wagner, what's the estimated time on the special area plan to development of that Levy community?
That's really hard to say, but it's a fair question. It is next on our list, but we kind of have to get finished with this moratorium area that we're working on. And somehow, it just seems like that's going to take a little bit longer than we want. But that is part of the contract that we have with Symbiosity, so we've already signed the contract to do it. It's next. We just are doing this as phase 1, and then phase 2 is going back and looking at all of the general land use and creating the special area plan for Levy. The area plan will take just a little bit longer than just reviewing the rest of the land use in general in Jasper County, because we want to engage the community there. We want them to be a part of the vision for that hamlet. So just doing the public outreach and trying to have public participation is going to take a little while, but I would certainly think that's going to be done, and I would like to hope it'll be completed by the end of next year. That's our goal.
Okay, if no further questions or comment, I'm ready to entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the staff's recommendation on this property.
second that motion.
A motion made by Dr. Boss that we accept the recommendation coming from staff, second by Dr. Butler. Ready for question? Hearing none, all in favor, so I supposed to let it know by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposes, same sign. Unfortunately, they want you to wait for you to get that zoning change. We thank you for your application, but
I think they're here for another application too. They're up for the next one.
next thing is a master plan amendment, Center Point Storage Phase 2.
Let me just spread out.
CenterPoint Storage LLC is seeking to amend the CenterPoint Storage Phase 2 Master Plan, which was approved by the Planning Commission on April 9, 2024. The subject property consists of 15.59 acre parcel. It's located at 5001 North Oakity Highway, and it's part of the CenterPoint Plan Development District. The CenterPoint PDD was approved by Jasper County Council on August 19, 2008. The CenterPoint Storage Phase 1 Master Plan was approved by the Jasper County Planning Commission on October 11, 2022. The master plan approved in April 2024 showed 4 building footprints and associated site infrastructure. Since that time, additional survey data was completed for the property, which supports a total of 6 buildings and their associated infrastructure. This master plan amendment for CenterPoint Storage 2 has been developed in accordance with the CenterPoint PDD standards and concept plan and the CenterPoint Development Agreement. A master plan is a plan for the overall utilization of a particular area, including allocation of land uses and infrastructure. This master plan anticipates development of a mixture of different storage and commercial uses, including warehouse and flex space. The thought is commercial office in the front and storage in the rear. The current plan calls for approximately 74,850 square feet of building space across the 6 buildings. The development will include associated parking and the required stormwater treatment facilities. The site is across the highway from Camp St. Mary's Road. The access road, which was included in the Phase 1 master plan, is currently under construction and was designed in the location originally specified in the PDD access master plan, which lines up with Camp St. Mary's Road. The road will meet the needs of Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the CenterPoint Storage Master Plan and has the potential to connect to the future CenterPoint PDD development if needed. The master plan for CenterPoint Storage Phase 2 was prepared in accordance with Article 8.110 of the Jasper County Zoning Ordinance, which is outlined below and is intended to serve as a checklist. And then in the staff report, I outline everything required of the master plan. I'm happy to go through it if you want, but in red, I just put where everything is found in the document. The applicant has provided everything that is required by the ordinance. Staff does recommend approval of the CenterPoint Storage Phase 2 Master Plan Amendment. The applicant is here. Inside the binder that you were given was the overall CenterPoint PDD concept plan, the PDD standards, and an aerial map of the property outlined in blue, which I could pull up if you wanted me to. So the utility provider letters and the intent submittals, all that was included. The boundary and topographic survey, the master plan was revised to show the additional 2 buildings. And let's see. The traffic impact analysis was updated in July 2024. The traffic impact analysis covers Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the development. The master plan shows the required parking spaces based on office or retail and storage, but it also shows an additional 43 parking spaces throughout the site. So when we look at this PDD or this master plan, of course we look at the PDD just to make sure it's all in conformance with the concept plan and the PDD standards. So That's all, it's in conformance with that.
So the applicant can come forward and
Yep.
Lisa, when was the traffic updated?
It was, what did I just tell you, July?
July.
July 2024.
Okay,
I couldn't remember if I said June or July.
thank you.
Okay.
Good evening. Lisa basically hit all the notes that I was going to speak on. Like she said, we have additional parking to account for these 2 extra buildings on top of the original master plan, as well as additional stormwater measures to encompass that. From the TIA that was approved as well, we did increase the traffic trips. However, it wasn't to exceed anything where we would need new infrastructure such as a turn lane or anything. So in that measure, we are also in conformance like she was stating. Do you have any questions at this time?
Mrs. Lee,
No, sir.
Dr. Butler.
Yes, sir, thank you. So you anticipate, based on the traffic study update that you have, what were in general, what were the findings of the update?
Of the update, it did have an increase in trips. I think it was originally at 652. I don't have that figure in front of me, but I think it was at 652. And then with the updated trips, it's now at 677.
Okay, and Lisa, this does not include the traffic that will be coming from the new development in Bailey's. That's not given any across the road from them. This traffic study only addresses how much they will impact the traffic.
And what was in the queue at the time that it was done, and when I say the queue, I'm talking about South Carolina DOT.
So,
That's online. This was a revision of a traffic impact analysis. And I actually did look through it, but I don't think it's gonna account for it. I think you're asking about Bailey Park.
I am.
They have their own traffic, yeah, this. is-
So the 2 are not included. This does not reflect the traffic coming from that 160 whatever homes that are going to be built there.
No.
Okay. And this, what I've read is the intersection is projected to experience undesirable delay in the AM and PM peak hours of the future year, 2027 conditions. So,
Yes, ma'am. To explain the delays, it is on 170, and it's right beside the JP2 campus, which is already experiencing those delays. Thus, we don't feel that it's going to have any alternative effects on that, especially not in the morning. You know, the hours of this facility will probably be somewhere in the ballpark of 8 or 9, which wouldn't be in the school zone capacity. So I think it, you know, the delays that it's projecting are the delays that are already happening.
okay, and you probably don't know, but is their driveway going to be across from where these people are coming out of that housing development?
No, it's gonna be right across from Camp St. Mary's.
And theirs is further down?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a little bit more, do you call that south or east or? It's,
If you're looking at our plans, it'd be left,
yeah. Yeah. It would be toward,
which should be west, south.
going away from Buford,
Okay.
this access is.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, this is really basically saying it's going to be a mess out there. I mean, really, on 170.
Yes, ma'am.
Already a mess.
No, I know,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
mean, but this is going to exacerbate that situation out there.
Right. I think with the main goal of these buildings, though, however, is it to be a office flex / commercial space, such that the people that come in here, it's not primarily retail. It is primarily people that are having these small businesses, small shops, where you have customization for, like, say, a cabinet maker, where they can, you know, display their things up front, but also have that storage space in the back. However, with the square footage of these buildings, because they need that space, we have to account for that parking, which is why we show so much of that parking at this time.
One of the other concerns I had, now,
Yes, ma'am.
I thought that we were approving 2 more buildings on this property.
I mean, that's the reason for the amendment to the master plan.
Yes, ma'am. So what had happened is that the original master plan that was approved had a survey line in it that was inaccurate. The actual survey line was greater, showing we had a greater amount of property. Thus, we were able to fit 2 more buildings in that space. And by doing such, we actually shrunk some of the other buildings such we could fit, now 6 buildings in this case. And by fitting those 6 buildings, we added the additional 43 parking spaces.
My concern, particularly after the recent storm that we had and the damage that was done across the county,
Yes, ma'am.
is with the flow of water. And there is a swamp
Yes, ma'am.
right above you. I think it's Wig Swamp or something like that.
Yes, ma'am.
So you're going to be creating a space that blocks water flow, because I assume it's going back to the river that's on the other side of the road eventually
Yes,
as it moves. And so I just, who is what group monitors this, Lisa, to say that the way that they are constructing these buildings is not going to displace a significant amount of water onto their neighbors, and that they have provided for adequate movement of the property? I mean, I saw retention ponds all over the place running over. So that's not a real great answer to what we're going to do with the water.
So that will be assessed and determined during the site plan. They'll need to provide an engineer design for that site prior to any building permits or anything. They will need to get a stormwater permit from the state. Their post-development has to meet or exceed the pre-development state prior to any buildings being there. They can't allow any runoff that exceeds that.
Yeah,
Not only do they get that though, but the county is also going to look at it because we require a little bit of additional stormwater. We have a few more stormwater requirements than the state. The county uses a third-party engineering firm to do those reviews. They'll look at the water calculations. They'll make sure that everything is designed correctly, and then we'll oversee. We don't sit out there and hold their hand when they do the construction, but there are key inspections that if it's Thomas and Hutton doing the plan review, they'll provide an inspector who, one of the things he does look at is like the stormwater infrastructure that goes in. So we're making sure they're built according to plans, but they'll need to design it. It'll be reviewed, not only by us, but also at the state level.
And any displacement of water that's caused by these buildings that impacts the wetlands, because there are a lot of wetlands on this property, is that allowable? Is that monitored? And are they accountable for that?
Yes.
To speak on that, so right now, it is our intent to treat all the stormwater that is going to occur from these impervious buildings will be treated as much as possible on site through dry swales. That way you don't see this ponding, the staging that occurred during this flood. With that being said, the final outfall will be the retention pond in which they'll stage up before they reach these wetlands. And we will ensure that, it's staging below the 100-year storm in this case. I'm not sure what this past storm was, but I believe we got 13 inches. Yes, ma'am. But it's our intention to treat this as much as possible. And the only time that we will spill into the wetlands is in an emergency state. So, and it's almost 1.5 feet below where we are seeing the 100-year mark. But we are accounting for that. And as the engineer on site, we also will inspect the stormwater infrastructure during construction to ensure that any kind of sediment, any kind of runoff is not being polluted into these wetlands during the time of construction. And we also, I think, as part of Jasper County's maintenance agreement, we'll have to inspect after every rainfall as well as every 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
no, you're fine.
How close are you to John Paul?
I believe we are adjacent.
So
Yes, ma'am.
would
I'd have to
anything you're doing impact them?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. The way we're disconnected by a wetland is what we are.
Okay, so you don't think you're going to flood them out?
No, ma'am, no, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And they're not immediately adjacent to John Paul, but it is within all the same Trask property and within the Centerpoint PDD. But they are just, guess you would call that east of John Paul. Not a whole lot, but probably.
Well, my concern is the displacement of
2,500
water
feet.
and how it impacts their neighbors. And, I mean, you know, just because you
Yes, ma'am.
can fit a building on there
Right.
doesn't mean you need to.
Yes, ma'am. No, I
mean, you know,
understand that
and in the
completely.
greater
that's-
good of taking care of the community
Yes, ma'am.
and the wetlands and the animals that live in the place, sometimes it's better to do less.
Absolutely.
Um,
No, I understand completely. And that's why we tried to shrink some of these buildings whenever we realized that we could fit 6, is we took the building square footages on the other 4, shrunk them down as much as possible, and also created that green space of those dry swales to try and just treat that stormwater via infiltration so it wouldn't go and travel further downstream.
What does that mean, infiltration?
So it'll actually seep into the grass and the soil and not actually run off downstream.
Well, what if it's just like saturated and it can't?
In that case, we then would put in, overflow control structures or weirs, so the stormwater box necessarily, at the end of these dry swales to say, okay, if it does stage up too high, if they fill up, if it's saturated, then it will be transferred into the wet detention facilities,
It will be transferred where?
to the wet ponds. to
And
the
where
other
does it go?
ponds.
Oh, on site?
Yes, ma'am.
But not in the wetlands?
Not in the wetlands, no ma'am.
Okay.
These will all be interconnected. The dry swales will be interconnected to go to the wet ponds.
Okay,
Yes,
can't
ma'am.
wait till the next big rain. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think y'all's plan showed 100-foot buffer from the wetlands.
Yes, ma'am, I think I
They
have.
show up perfect. You maintain along any of the wetlands.
Thank you, Mr. Pinckney.
Dr. Boston,
Alex.
I don't have any.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Ferguson.
I don't have anything further. That was my primary concern about placing buildings and being able to redirect water to somebody else's property and spreading them out pretty much. But
Mr. Jenkins.
Mr. Chairman, I just, Lisa, in the Centerpoint Storage Phase 2, when you go to page 5.1, where it's the traffic impact analyst, it says traffic analyst was conducted for a criteria point storage facility developed which analyzed the need for a turn lane at the project driveway according to highway capacity manual. It says turn lane analysis, right turn lanes. So the only way that goes in there if they meet one of these 9 criteria. It's on page 5.1 in the book.
Okay, I'm sorry, what's the question?
The DOT is saying that this right turn lane should be put in only if this project meet one of the 9 criteria listed
Oh, that's under tab 8.
on page 5.1.
Yeah, I see it.
He's asking what triggers
Yeah,
the right turn lane
right turn
requirement
lane.
out of, is it one of those 9?
Yeah, one of these 9.
Oh,
Because when I was reading this and we were talking about, one of the commission was talking about traffic and impact study on traffic. I was just reading in this book on 5.0 traffic impact analyst. You see that on page 5.1?
yeah, I see it. So when they apply for their, development permit, that's part of the requirement too. They have to get DOT approval. DOT's gonna review it. You know, they have their set of guidelines and benchmarks you kind of have to meet in order to get a traffic light.
Oh.
They don't approve it until the need is shown. So, I'm not sure, this is just part of their traffic impact analysis. I don't know which of these that does DOT give a greater weight to, but any of these commercial projects, they have to provide that DOT encroachment permit. DOT does their own full review of it. If they need to mitigate, they'll ask them to mitigate, that'll be part of it. They do an encroachment permit that has special provisions they have to meet, or they might just give them the encroachment permit and no other mitigation needs to be met.
Yeah, when I was just going through this book, that caught my eyes when we were talking about traffic and impact study, and 1.7 is just a, yeah.
Yeah, and then, the executive summaries in the front, and it kind of, it sums it up there, basically. It said something about, I don't want to put it in my words, because my words won't be right, but, it talks about the project delay, like, Dr. Butler mentioned.
In the TIA as well, it said that the delays that we were worried about would primarily only be experienced by the people that are going to be visiting that site.
Yes.
And that can either be dependent on the hours, as well as, since it is further down from the John Paul II. It also does, that section of 170 has a two-way left turn lane, so left turning into that site, you wouldn't need a dedicated light or anything in that measure. We don't trigger that need for any additional measures from DOT, like another right turn lane or a light.
What are your hours of operation?
I don't have those right in front of me, sir, but with this being a flex space, I'd assume anywhere between 8 and 9 to open, and then, at night, probably 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I was just reading that section, and I just saw a lot of stuff in there where it says about
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Yeah, the last paragraph in the executive summary, after it talks about the delay, it just says a signal would likely mitigate this delay. However, a cursory review of peak hour warrant for signalization indicates that the warrant is not likely to be met. Therefore, no improvements to mitigate this delay are recommended. And this is a TIA. It's not done by DOT, although they review it, but DOT will review their application and will determine if anything is needed or not.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Ross,
No comments.
are there any other questions or comments from anyone? Hearing none, ready to entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Jenkins make a motion that we approve the master plan amendment for Centerpoint Storage Phase 2, portion of 08100030040.
Motion made by Mr. Jenkins to approve. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Roberts. Ready for question? Hearing none, all in favor of such motion, let it know by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed by the same sign. Hearing none, you have approved.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Next thing on the agenda this afternoon is major subdivision approval, Bailey Park.
The applicant is seeking preliminary plat approval for Bailey Park subdivision. The subject property is zoned residential, which at the time of application on May 3rd, 2023, townhouses were allowed in the residential zoning district. The project site is located along Old Bailey Road. The subject property is 20 acres and is identified by tax map number 081-0004-007. The applicant intends to develop a townhouse subdivision consisting of 163 townhome units. The project will be developed in one phase. The Planning Commission reviewed this project several times over the past couple of years when it was proposed as a planned development district and consisted of 2 parcels. The applicant decided early last year to develop only one of the parcels using the by right zoning for townhouses allowed in the residential zoning district. The site plan conforms to all of the Jasper County requirements. Each lot area is 2,000 square feet. The units are set back approximately 125 feet from Old Bailey Road, 80 feet from the property line on the east side of the property, 50 feet from the west side of the on the western boundary line. The internal road system is set back approximately 100 feet from Old Bailey Road. All of the interior setbacks are met in accordance with the county zoning ordinance. Subdivision screening, sidewalks, and passive open space will be provided. The subdivision will be governed by covenants and eventually a homeowners association. Thomas and Hutton has reviewed the subdivision plans against Article 2.4 of the Land Development Regulations. That's the completeness section. Article 2.8B, the preliminary major plat approval. Article 4.6, preliminary major subdivision procedure, and Article 4.7, preliminary plat requirements, and all other elements as required for land development, such as road design, stormwater, construction standards, and the engineer's opinion of cost. All requirements of the land development regulations have been met regarding the engineered plans for construction, with the exception of receiving approval from the final letter of approval from Beaufort Jasper Water Sewer Authority and the South Carolina DHEC wastewater permit. A preliminary plat approval shall constitute approval of the proposed widths and alignments of streets, dimensions and shapes of lots. Preliminary plat approval is good for 2 years from the date of approval. Once the Planning Commission approves the preliminary plat, the applicant shall submit 4 final sets of construction plans for execution by Jasper County. 1 copy which shall be forwarded to the applicant. A preliminary major subdivision plat approval shall allow the applicant to proceed under the supervision of the county with the installation of site improvements. Preliminary plat approval shall not authorize the applicant to sell or otherwise transfer lots or parcels within the platted subdivision. No construction shall begin on the site until the developer has posted the appropriate performance bonds, letter of credit, or other financial security acceptable to the county for the proposed site improvements, along with the appropriate inspection fee. Staff does recommend approval of the preliminary plat for Bailey Park subdivision with the condition that the following items are provided prior to commencement of any construction of site infrastructure, and that's the Beaufort Jasper Water Sewer Authority approval, the DHEC wastewater permit, the applicable bond or other financial guarantee, a site inspection fee, and a pre-construction meeting to be held on site with the county representatives. In your in this package, I know it was a big package, sorry. You have a project narrative from Moore Civil. I'm sorry, it's Moore Civil with the engineer. The application for the subdivision, a letter from Thomas and Hutton regarding the plan review, South Carolina DHEC, the coastal zone consistency determination, the letter from South Carolina DOT regarding the encroachment permit, email from Bo Ellis at South Carolina Department of Environmental Services regarding the OCRM approval for stormwater, the engineer's opinion of cost, the road maintenance agreement, the environmental impact assessment, the traffic impact analysis, preliminary plat, the landscape and plans, and the construction plans for the subdivision infrastructure. And the applicant is with us tonight.
Would it come forward and state the name and
Good evening, members. My name is Jennifer Toski, and I am the representative for K&R Development.
Mr. Roberts, do you have any questions at this time?
I have a few and a few comments after reviewing the application. And some of this will be towards Ms. Lisa as well as the applicant. Were there any iteration, obviously staff has approved recommendations, so it clearly meets the bare minimum of our zoning ordinance, which I feel is a shame. Because there's, I believe, certain aspects of a community like this that need to be taken into account and consideration that probably exceed the minimum requirements, but and a potential approval of this, Lisa, I'm assuming the townhouse layout, the driveway conditions, and then the infrastructure for sidewalks would be per this plan as submitted? Or will there be a variation of this potentially from a design standpoint?
Well, I mean, the plan has been, it's went through the whole engineered design. As far as the parking, it accommodates 1.5, there's one, it accounts for 1.5 parking spaces per unit. Fire department has reviewed it and signed off. They required at least a temporary access, a second one on Old Bailey Road. I know DOT didn't want that there, but EMS said, no, you have to have it. So they agreed on a temporary, it's a, not temporary, emergency. I'm looking for the word emergency, not temporary. So it's an emergency secondary access there.
Yeah, so I have a couple primary concerns. Not that we can even do anything about it, but the first one is the lack, number one, looking at the open space calculations, and there's a faint crosshatch area that they use to calculate open space. And my personal and professional opinion is space in between two developed townhouses really shouldn't count as open space because it is disturbed ground. It's some of these are being used for drainage easements, and there's a severe lack of open space in the development. I started doing really quick math, 163 units. The average household in America that is a family household is about 2/3. The average family household based on the 23 census has 1.94 children. You start doing the math, 66% of 163 times 1.94, there's about potentially 200 kids in this neighborhood. Where are they going to play? Where are they going to ride their bikes? Not to say that the density is too high, it clearly meets our ordinances, but the things I get concerned with, which maybe we can't do anything about it tonight for this community, but as we're revamping our zoning ordinance, these are the things that I think we should be looking at, not necessarily trying to appease a few people and prohibit development, which is too restrictive. But in this case, we have a 2-lane loaded road. We have 163 driveways, singular driveways. They're not connected. They're equally spaced. There's going to be vehicles everywhere. My sense, having lived in a community like this, the sidewalks will be unusable because there will be cars parked nose to tail, interfering with the sidewalk access. Yes, there may be covenants and things that can restrict some of that, but I feel like this is asking for the maximum density that we can get without necessarily really meeting some open space requirements and certainly from a design standpoint, you know, I think there's better ways to do, you know, alleyways in between rear-loaded parking, push the buildings a little closer to the sidewalk, but keep the driveways to the rear instead of the back, which gives a more sense of a streetscape, kind of a natural, you know, area for families or children to kind of walk and congregate. That's not driveway all the way down. So my only real concern is, yeah, it might meet the minimum requirements for zoning, but where do we, as a, you know, planning commission or the zoning department or building department, have leeway to comment on design and what ultimately would become a good, you know, obviously it's needed. I think affordable housing is a huge need in these type of developments. I'm anti the prohibition of it, even though I know the new zoning ordinance is going to make it very difficult for these communities, but at the same time, there's still a way to do it right. And not having a bunch of driveways coming onto a community that also has a singular entrance point, to me, the DOT should allow the second, you know, they should be required. 163 units with probably an average of 2 vehicles, if not 3 or 4. Because the type of family that's going to occupy this space they're probably not single families. They're going to be working class locals with multiple vehicles, multiple work vehicles. It's going to be a cluster. So where do we have any leeway to?
Well, if you want additional parking, you can ask for additional parking, but whether that can be enforced, I don't think it can, just because we really need to do a zoning text amendment to change the ordinance that's that way.
Right.
But in the land development regulations, it does say that, you know, the planning commission can require sidewalks. They can require, you know, if you feel that there's something being done that's unsafe in the community, you can ask for whatever that need is to be met, whether, I know, and I'm sorry I didn't bring the ordinance with me. I do have it on the computer. I would need to look it up. I believe it mentions the community open space. You know, it gives you some things that, as a commissioner, if you feel that is needed, again, for the safety of the community.
Mr. Pinckney, could I ask
And I would
you
just say, you know,
to
those
explain
are the
what
kind
he
of
said?
things
I didn't quite
we
get it.
been good here at the county.
When it's my
with our
turn.
staff, with the PDDs asking for extra, maybe like where it gives us an opportunity to look at each development and see what their impacts are, and to ask, you know, if there's like the I-95 logistics, we said we want a sound barrier wall on one side of the property because there was residential. So it gives us that opportunity to do those sort of things, even increase setbacks and all. But the community clearly didn't want to go that route. They, you know, didn't want us to, they just fought it tooth and nail and didn't, you know, so this is a project that's been underway for about 4 years, or 3 years, I think, 2 years now. I think Ms. Toski has changed her plans more than once to try and appease everyone. So I would really let her have to speak to anything else, you know, about that. Let's go see if I could pull up the land development regulations.
Mr. Robinson, if you would like me to address a couple of your comments, I'll be glad to. So when we acquired this property back in 2022, it was our intent to develop it with less density. We went before County Council and we asked for a PDD rezone, and we were going to forego all approved uses with the exception of 100 and I think it was 30 single-family homes. After 12 months of going through, and you guys approved a PDD rezone. You actually liked the plan that was presented. After a couple of very unsuccessful council meetings, the council tabled the PDD request twice. At that point, we were several $100,000s into this project, plus the acquisition of the cost of the land, and even had Grant McClure with the Conservation League stand up and say, we understand this property has to be developed, it's going to be developed. What Ms. Toski is proposing with the PDD is the lesser of kind of the two evils. So we couldn't seem to articulate that as being the better option for what was a by right use at the time. And we were willing to forego all commercial for the other parcel in exchange just for the single family use, because we also wanted to do something that had less of an impact. But in truthfulness, we were tabled so many times that we felt at that point after the second reading that we weren't going to be able to articulate what we were trying to do in a reduction of our own density. So we went back to the drawing board and we came back with a plan that under the current by right use would allow for townhomes. And the 163 townhomes that you see here is a self-imposed lower density than what even the ordinance would allow. I believe we had the right to do 220 townhomes, but we opted not to. We also self-imposed greater buffers all around the property. We self-imposed a deeper buffer off of Bailey Road. We opted to go with townhomes that pulled the townhomes towards the road, and there are sidewalks throughout this entire development. We pulled the townhomes a little closer to the street to give larger backyards for residents to enjoy, which is not something that's typical in a townhome community. We've all lived in townhome communities at some point in our life, I think, and you know how the backyards just back up to each other and there's no backyard. Knowing that some of our residents, maybe the majority of them might be families, maybe not. Our demographic has come back and proven to be that the majority of our demographic is actually a 50 and better age demographic. But we did opt for larger backyards. So we did pull it a little bit closer, but with our driveway layouts, we actually can get 2 cars in the garage and in the driveway. We do have covenants that are under draft review right now that will be strictly enforced concerning street parking. My son lived in a community in Bluffton when he was in college that it was a nightmare to go and see him. And I think we all know the community I'm talking about, where there were cars and cars and cars stacked up on the streets. So we are cognizant of that particular issue in here, and we are drafting covenants that will be enforced and prevent that. And again, it's all about enforcement. I live in a community right now in Berkeley Hall I'm in Berkeley Hall, but they police their community. They enforce their covenants. I accidentally left my trash cans out in my driveway one day because my husband had to go to the emergency room, and 4 hours after I left them out, I got a phone call from the security guards. Ms. Toski, you need to bring your trash cans inside. I'm like, well, I'm at the hospital, but okay, I'll do my best. So I think it comes down to a matter of the governance of each community, because I also am very familiar with planned units, developments that have extensive density, and they don't struggle with cars and parking and things of that nature. So while we're trying to balance the needs of the Bailey residents in giving generous buffers, sidewalks, the open space, we would love to do more open space, but it also becomes an HOA or a POA question of recreation areas. We looked at doing like an amenity center or something in here. The problem with that is in this price point, you're adding an extra cost to your end user, to your ultimate homeowner. There's insurance costs that go along with amenities areas, whether it's playground facilities or swimming pools or anything of that nature. There's also a cost to construct those facilities. And we did not feel for the demographic that we were putting in this particular area that was something that would bring any real value to the homeowner, but instead would burden them with additional cost. So we do understand what your concern is there. And we did ask for 2 driveway entrances. We were told no by the DOT. So what you have is a grass bed road for emergency use that will be constructed. That's actually more expensive to build than a regular entrance, but we're doing it because that's what we were asked to do. I'm not disappointed, but I was discouraged when we presented the original PDD to the county council, because overall, I thought that would have been a much better option, but it didn't work out. For whatever reason, the community in Bailey and down Bailey Road just, I don't know if they just didn't understand what we were trying to do, but it left us with no option but to go back to our by right use, and that was townhomes. Single-family homes in a residential zoning are only allowed, I think it's 1 every 1 acre or 1 every 2 acres. I think it's 1 every 1 acre, or back it was when we did our application. So there are things that, we did weigh heavily in coming up with this design.
Thank you.
Mr. Jenkins?
The road maintenance agreement, lease, is that with the county, the state, or property owners?
Old Bailey's Road is a state road, and then the road that goes in here is gonna be a private road.
Oh, so that it'll be maintained by,
What is it?
it'll be maintained by the property owners association? Oh, okay, I just have one other question. Has there been an archaeological study, Lisa, and
There's an environmental study that was provided. Environmental site assessment.
I don't, okay, I trust you, it's in there. My final question is, have you thought about what the price of one of these?
So right now, we are trying to stay at a base price in the mid-200s. We feel encouraged that with this design and this actual density that we can accomplish that. Where it goes from that price is going to really depend on the purchaser. There will obviously be options and upgrades, and I would typically, what we have seen, and I come from real estate sales. I managed a lot of new home communities, and on average, when you get into a price point of around 250, 265-ish, you don't see more than about $35,000 in upgrades on average that go into these houses. So I think when all is said and done and the last one is built, we're probably going to end up somewhere with an average sales price around $295,000, $310,000, somewhere around there.
Well, the only reason I asked that question, I'm concerned about affordable housing.
I'm concerned about it too. We have looked at some, I believe the last time I came before you all, it was brought up, and I forget exactly who asked me, but I did a lot of research.
I remember
Was
I
it
asked that
you?
question. Yes, ma'am.
And I believe there's a threshold. Is it 20% of the community? And there was a time that we were looking at doing this as a for rent product, which we would have easily been able to meet that threshold. As a for sale product, I'm not 100% sure what the requirements and what it would take in a situation like that, but I have been studying it, and I will continue to look into it, because at this stage, we're about 12 months to 14 months out before we are ready to take any type of sales contract. We have to get this done and recorded and finalized, and so I have, I think, a little bit of time to research what can be done on fee simple transactions for affordable housing assistance.
Good luck to you, because with the price of things, if you could do that, that would be a blessing.
I will. I have family members that need it and have used it, so I get it. I mean, I was there myself at one time, so I understand that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What is the 10% open space Do we have open space in here? And that open space is supposed to be used for children and recreation?
Not really.
It doesn't necessarily
Undeveloped.
say that, but, I mean, you have passive open space and you have active open space. So I know that the planning commission are big proponents of, active community open space.
Okay, getting back to this, what he asked about the children, I know you said you got a 50 and over probably, but do you have anything in this design for the children who may be in this development?
As far as activity-type recreation facilities?
Yeah, playground, stuff like that.
We are going to leave that up to the actual homeowners association to make that decision as to whether or not they want to include playground equipment.
Is that space provided for in your plan?
There are areas where very small amounts of playground equipment can be placed, park benches, picnic tables, small jungle gym types of things. It really comes down to the HOA and what they want to take on in liability. And again, I've served as the president of 13 different HOAs. And every time a child was injured or fell, there was a claim, and we saw insurance rates go up. And so to impose that at this particular stage, I don't know. I think I would prefer to get a general feel from the community as to whether or not they want to install that type of equipment on their property.
Okay, on your original plan, you said you had a design where you had like single-family units, and since you condensed your design to this, do you have more properties adjacent to this?
So there is a commercial tract that is
That
just,
you're not going to be developing?
we are not developing that
Yes.
at this time.
Okay.
No.
Could that be used for open space?
It cannot. It's actually a separate parcel. It's under a different tax map number, and there's a different, we are a common owner in that piece, but there are other owners as well. And it is zone community commercial presently, but it is in the process of being reviewed to be village commercial.
And you did say you reduced your units from 120-something down, no, 220-something down to 163.
We did. We actually have reduced it 3 or 4 times. As we came before the council and this commission, and we heard the input from the community, we kept taking it down, 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 until we got to a point where it was still feasible financially, but it wasn't trying to shove 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag.
Yeah. You couldn't maximize the efficiency of it productivity-wise, so you reduced it to be a little more
Correct.
compatible with what everybody was thinking. You said they couldn't understand your first design.
I don't know if it was just, there was so much emotion involved in our initial PDD application. The first one went through fine. We did our planning commission, you guys approved it, and we went straight to county council. And the first reading sailed through. And then there were a few residents in the Bailey area that just heard rezone to PDD, and it escalated and spiraled out of control, because instead of realizing that the by right use was extremely dense and allowed for tens of thousands of square feet of commercial space and hundreds of multifamily and townhome type units, it was almost like it was lost in translation between the council and the public. And I think Lisa, I might be wrong, I think I attended 2 meetings where I spoke for quite a lengthy period of time trying to answer questions and allay fears about what we were doing, but it just got to a point where we felt that ultimately the request would be denied.
I think the concern was the effect that it would have had on the Okatee River if you had done that development.
There were some concerns, and I do want to give you a little bit of an update. The NPDES permit is ready. I spoke with Shannon Hicks, who is the manager for the project managers for the stormwater, coastal stormwater division. The storm delayed them a little bit. Their offices were closed pretty much all of last week. They were supposed to have that issued to us the Friday prior to the storm, and it didn't get done. But I did talk with her, and she said that actual NPDES permit will be forthcoming this week, she hopes, at the very latest by Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. But the review is complete and everything is compliant. Our stormwater, our systems divert away from the Ocoee River. I do know that. They did confirm that. That wasn't a question that came up in our coastal zone consistency meetings. And CZC gave us the approval back in May and specifically talked about diversion away from the Ocoee River.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Dr. Butler.
I'm going to beat a horse to death, but going back to the open areas, where are they on this map that we've been provided, and one of the maps? I mean, where can I say, oh, this is an open area that a child might go?
I'm honestly not sure which plan you're looking at, but I think the engineer designated them around the ponds and the wetlands area. I'm not sure how he labeled them, if he called them conservation or open areas, but they are the undeveloped areas around our wetlands and detention ponds that could be utilized for open space.
I'll find it here in a second. There's actually a fairly good graphic on one of these pages where all the miscellaneous information is off of it, and the open area is a little cross hatch, like an X hatch.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you here in a second.
And then our intent was at the front, I believe the ordinance allows us to go 50 feet from the road. I think we pushed back 100 feet, maybe 125. Our thought process was, as you come into the community, having a tremendous amount of tree coverage and foliage, and utilizing the backside of that buffer facing into the community for any areas that we would like to put some playground equipment or
201, Lisa.
or anything along those lines.
C201.
When you drive, our intent was when you come down Bailey Road, you're not going to see townhomes. You're going to see foliage. You're going to see trees. And I think we have a pretty extensive landscape plan. I glanced at it and I thought that they had done a very good job in the coverage of replanting trees and everything that we're taking out.
That was one of my questions. I mean, this is a completely wooded piece of property.
It is.
Right now, and when I was looking at what turned out to be your, I guess this is your, I don't know, it just says site development, to see, it really didn't look like there were going to be many trees put back on the property, which was of concern when you've got this many people, and but you feel like there are a lot of trees going in?
And I'm torn on that, and I'll tell you why. Because from a sales standpoint, me being in real estate since 1998, trees sell. Mm-hmm. People buy homes where there's trees and there's shade and there's greenery and there's beautiful stuff. From a developer standpoint, it's expensive to put it back in. So, but the long-term benefit of doing it far outweighs the short-term cost. And when my husband and I were talking about how much landscaping we wanted to put back in, we are looking at trees along the boulevards. We're looking at trees along the sidewalks, and wherever there's space to plant something, I instructed our landscape architect, to put something there. And there are things that you can plant and that you can do relatively quickly. And I'm going to go back to where I currently live. When we built our house, the ARB there said, you've got to plant stuff that is mature in 2 growing seasons. And so you do kind of look at that and go, okay, you can do ligustrums, you can do red tips, you can do cypress trees, you can do beautiful replant white oaks along the boulevard. There's a lot that can be done, but it does make the sales side of it easier because you're not stripping the land. And we live here. We're not going anywhere. We live 4 miles from the site. Right now, we just recently purchased a home. I'm coming home up in Gillisonville. And, we'll be here. This is our community and our name is on it, so I want it to look right.
How close are you to the adjacent property owners, and what kind of barrier or what's there to give visual restriction So
we-
these people who've lived here, I guess their homes there, I haven't looked.
So if you turn your plan north up, like this, on the right-hand side of the property, we specifically designed it to appease the property owner to the right of us, which is Erica Bailey.
That's right here. There is a property, there's a house right here where my cursor is.
Right in this lower corner right there, there is a house.
So these units are set back beyond that.
And there is no one in the long piece of property adjacent to the property. However, what we decided to do to, again, work as closely as we can with her, is we brought that road down that right side so that that entire right side perimeter buffer will not be disturbed. Whatever is there now is going to stay in that buffer, creating privacy and somewhat of a hedge. We've even offered at the very front of the community to build a privacy fence, a living fence. I love those, where we can plant vines and whatnot, and it becomes a very thick and dense barrier, just along her property line specifically. But one of the original townhome designs had the townhomes backing up to her property. And we pulled those off and put the road there so that on that side of the road, you have your buffer, you have your open space, your road, and your sidewalk, then your townhome. So there's quite a bit of privacy on that side. On the left side, again, we will not disturb any perimeter buffer. We self-impose larger buffers than what were required, and we push the townhomes to the street to create even deeper backyards. So not only will you have the perimeter tree buffer, but you have whatever someone's going to do in their backyard of their townhome, be it a privacy fence or additional landscaping.
So on this side, the homes are pushed up to the property line, more to the property line? This is, you said, well, this is north, north up.
So you're on the, yes, is the commercial parcel at the top there? My contacts are.
This actually doesn't say.
Basically, we took all of the townhomes and we squeezed everything into the center of the property to give as much privacy as we can. Again, the sales side of me wanting to give backyards and privacy, because even townhomes deserve that type of a buffer.
Okay, and I guess the last concern is what I mentioned to the other group has to do with displacement of water. I mean, you're cutting down all these trees and you're going to pack all these homes in there, and it's going to be pretty much wall-to-wall homes and very little. Where's the water going?
So I'm not an engineer, but I'm going to repeat what my engineer has said to me, because especially after this last visit from Debbie, I think we've all looked around and thought, wow, what happens
Right.
at this point? The way that the engineer explained it to me is he said, Jennifer, if every piece of property had designed for retention and storm drain runoff, you wouldn't have had any flooding. And he said this particular development is designed by the latest standards to meet or exceed what is currently the situation. In this particular piece of property, we will exceed what is currently happening right now, because I want to draw your attention to the center of the property where the wetlands are.
Where the what are?
The wetlands.
Oh, okay.
These wetlands did not exist 10 years ago. This is a non-jurisdictional wetland that exists because someone decided to cut a drainage ditch from one side of Bailey Road clear across to the other and never maintained it. So a lot of these properties have now these artificial wetlands that were created because a drainage ditch was not properly maintained. What we're doing here will actually correct that problem for not only our property but our two neighboring properties, because our system is designed to pull the water in underground, direct it to the stormwater inlets and manholes, and send it on its way where it's supposed to go.
Where is it? Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me.
So what we're doing will actually improve the drainage for that particular area.
Where is that water going? You said it's not going to the river.
My understanding is it's being directed right back to Beaufort Jasper, down to their plant and out to wherever that goes. We had to tie in with and Beaufort Jasper will issue their final when they get that NPDES permit in hand this week. But my understanding is the design of the system goes out to Parts of it will go out to 170 and hit those underground pipes and out towards Beaufort Jasper, and some of it will go down Bailey Road and into an inlet that is, I believe, at the back of Okatee Park.
So when you have a situation like we have with Debbie and you have a lot of water coming in and the system can't handle it, where does that water go?
Well, I think with Debbie, that was an extremely unusual situation to get 20 to 30 inches of rain. But when the overflow occurs, it is my understanding that the systems are designed to divert the water and dispense the water over longer areas, not allowing it to pool. I will say this, I've listened carefully to a lot of comments about stormwater and the flooding, and where we live, our house sits at about 22 feet above sea level. There was, and we're at a high point in our community, none of our community flooded. Ironically, the property we bought up in Gillisonville that sits at 35 feet above sea level, everything around it flooded and washed out roads. So I think that, I get the concern of where does the water go with development, but I've started to understand that development and designing these underground systems and diverting this stormwater so it can get off of these properties is a good thing if it's done right. And I think that's where it falls on the engineers to make sure their systems are designed and meet all of the criteria or exceed it. I think a lot of the flooding that our area experienced would not have happened had there been some sort of engineered system to divert the water away. If you look at the areas that flooded, they weren't developed. There were 2 communities in Bluffton that flooded. That's it. Hilton Head didn't flood. My son is a 911 dispatcher on Hilton Head, manager. They didn't flood. They're lower than Bluffton in some places. There were 2 communities in Bluffton that flooded, and it was because the inlets could not handle the water or they had debris in them that weren't cleaned out. But by and large, Bluffton and Hilton Head, which is highly dense and highly developed, fared much better than Jasper and Hampton counties. And owning property in both counties, I looked at my husband when the rain happened. I said, we don't have to worry about this up in Gillisonville. We don't have to worry about it. I was wrong, because the back of the property flooded in Gillisonville. So I think it kind of, I'm not an engineer, and I'm not going to try to answer something out of my level of intelligence. But the engineers have said all of this is designed to drain this water off and away from the Bailey area, and even so much as helping the neighboring properties not to have standing water. I have an uncle that owns property a little bit further down the road on Bailey. It's a 49-acre piece. And when he moved to West Virginia, his property was high and dry. He sent us out there not too long ago to look at something on the property, and he's got a huge wetland in the middle of his property now because of that drainage ditch that created it. And the storm only exacerbated that for his property. So I kind of believe and I'm of the thought that these systems are a good thing when they're done right.
I will say that in looking over some of the things that we dealt with tonight, there are over 40 swamps in Jasper County, and those are methods of draining water back to the coast. And with all this development, although it's pretty and they stay high and dry, they have displaced water. These swamps are going to empty. They are going to empty.
They will.
And if you happen to put a development in line of it, I'm sorry, but it's going somewhere.
I totally.
I'm more sensitive to that than most, but I really think that's a real issue that the Planning Commission needs to consider at some point. Anyway, thank you very much.
Mr. Lee?
I don't have anything at this time. Thank you.
I'd like to ask one question. There's a lot of concern about the open space. I know y'all have been through a lot. Is anything that you do a little advised to give a little more open space in that project? Maybe giving up one townhouse to have a little more open space in it?
We can look at that, and let me tell you why I am this is a conversation that I've had with my husband on numerous occasions. Some of these townhome units that are on the end, if we looked at reducing those numbers and making that open space, those do become more desirable units, but then the price goes up on those units. So it becomes a balance of, if we give up a unit for open space, then we have to look at recouping the amount of the revenue lost on that unit somehow, which makes those units very desirable, because everybody likes privacy, but it makes them more expensive. And what I thought we would do is, after we got into it, when we really got into constructing this and we began really marketing to our base, because you don't want to prematurely put things out there, get people's hopes up, then pull it back. That's kind of, you don't want to do that. But as we got into developing, if we saw that there were buyers that would say, hey, we want to be on this end unit, we're willing to pay a little bit more, but we want some more privacy, then we just don't build it. We don't build that end unit, we price accordingly. But to pull it out at this time and commit to that, it's a little ahead of schedule. But my thought process has gone there, because I have thought about that for these end units, trying to find a way to potentially make those more desirable.
It's something to consider,
Yes.
because this meeting is televised. If council's gonna see it, you're probably gonna get that question asked again.
Probably.
And they will make the final determination. Even if we make a recommendation to them, they will make the final decision for your approval.
Right.
Well, I know y'all have spent lots of money, and we're gonna work carefully to make sure that our zoning ordinance is more clarified, to help applicants from not having to spend so much money without getting approval.
Yeah, I would agree with that. In other municipalities where I've had to go for approvals, there's typically a conceptual plan approval that is contingent or predicated on certain items being done, and then all of the comments can be addressed on the front end and incorporated into final documents. So I agree with you. On the front end, the approval process is always, at least for us, it's been a conditional approval. And then if the commission and the councils have had input concerning design, we would accommodate that before we go to the expense of engineering and seeking permits and all of that. So I agree with you on that. Mm-hmm.
Are there any questions?
I have one more comment, just because I was looking at the adjacent community, which is Okatee Park Drive. Okatee Park Drive is a single-family neighborhood.
Yes.
There's 110 rooftops in that, at whatever lot size they're allowed to. They look like they're smaller, certainly smaller than 1 acre, but
They're about a third of an acre, if I remember.
So,
Yeah.
so 110. At the front, small retention pond with a covered or an uncovered like fishing dock or viewing platform. 6 parking spaces. They have a sand pit, a field that can be used for soccer goals. You can actually see the soccer goals in it. In the middle of that community, there's a square parcel with on-street parking on 3 of the 4 sides. There's a basketball court, there's a playground. On the adjacent side of that, there's another green grassy area with a dog park. Go a little further down, there's another green area with a, looks like to be a sand beach volleyball type parcel. So you're talking 60 less rooftops, far less density. I don't know if anyone has ever been in that community, but it's tight. Like, I mean, there's cars everywhere. It's significantly less than what this density is, which is probably why our zoning ordinance is changing to not allow this. But
I believe there are also 25 acres on their parcel, and that is what we sought to do originally, was a very similar layout to Okatee Park by requesting the PDD rezone. That we could not get through. But that community, we've been in there many, many times. And I think is it 110? I thought it was 121 rooftops in there. Some of the lots aren't developed. But our original plan did have an area for playgrounds and that type of thing.
And these lots, they're not even a 1/4 acre, they're less than 1/10 of an acre. They're like 0.15. I would just say that the density with the townhouses, which is part of why we have done that amendment, it allows 11 units per acre. So the plan before you tonight is for 8.3, basically is what it comes to, just barely over 8 per acre. So if you were to multiply, you have 20 acres, at 3 more units per acre, I mean, that's 60 more units. So it's not using the full density, which I don't think you could no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, it's, that it goes back to the way we write rules that you can't even meet.
Well, you technically could, because you could go with a two-story townhome product where there's a first-floor entrance and a second-floor townhome on top. And we did look at that density, but it wasn't what we wanted to do there. So we could have squeezed the 200 and something townhomes on there and undulated rooftops, you know, have buildings that were 1 stories, buildings that were 2 stories. But we weren't looking to make enemies of neighbors. You know, that wasn't what we were looking to do. That would be dense.
Any other questions or comments?
A couple of questions. One, first of all, I was impressed with the underground drainage and how the water just ran down into the pipes and ran off. Now, where does that water go again?
My understanding is it is diverted away from the Ocoee River and back towards the Beaufort Jasper plant. We aren't that far from that treatment plant there, and my understanding is our lines will go down Bailey Road. We tie in, we hit the, inlets with the storm inlet things down there, and it all goes into Beaufort Jasper over that way.
It's going to be pumped.
It is gravity fed.
Okay, and the last part of this, you said you were not going to do anything with the commercial part of it and didn't want to use that as open space. Was that originally a part of this PDD?
No, sir. These have always been 2 separate pieces. We asked to join them as one under a PDD.
Okay.
And that was per the code. Anything in Jasper County over 25 acres?
25 acres.
25. So by joining the 2 parcels, I think we hit 26 and change for the acreage, which required us to submit for the PDD.
Okay, that's it for me.
Anyone, any other questions?
Lisa, when you said submitted for action, what you mean?
Well, it's before you tonight for a preliminary plat approval.
Oh,
Yes. And just another reason we made a change to the townhouse ordinance is because we had people who started wanting to build, you know, trying to put in applications in the residential zone where there's no sewer available. And that's certainly not appropriate. So we're going to go back and look at all that, but we're trying to finish the work with the comprehensive plan.
I'm ready to entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Jenkins, I'll offer a motion that we grant the preliminary plat approval to Bailey Park, tax map 08100040007 for approval.
And just the staff report asks for a conditional, if you just kind of want to reference the staff report based
Right.
on those conditions.
That's fine.
I think that's feasible for everyone.
Right.
And we'll call Mr. Pinkney if this goes through when we have everything for you to come in and sign the plans.
That's fine.
Motion by Mr. Jenkins, here a second.
Second.
Second by Dr. Boston. Ready for question? Hearing none, all in favor of such motion, let it know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, by the same sign.
I'd like to be noted as opposition to that, and in particular, I'd like you to note that the lack of green space or areas for, I don't want to say a playground, because that's not what I mean, but green spaces should do it.
Same.
Okay, thank you.
And opposition here too?
Yes.
Lisa, you think they want these things back? Do they need them? Can you use them?
I thought that you all needed them, so we
That was the smallest I could get.
Thank you.
Scale for you, so.
You're more than welcome to give them back to me if you'd like, yes.
Well, I just, if it could help her, if she wanted it, I'd give it.
Sure, if she wants
I
them,
got a
yeah.
recycle bin.
Y'all use it for fire.
That's where my
Lisa, you
gotta
record this.
recycle container.
No, we have full-size plans. We'll be asking Mr. Pinckney to sign. They're even bigger.
Next thing, to reschedule a meeting that we had canceled.
Yes, sir.
Did you see that underground drainage that they had for the problem?
If it works with your schedule,
Diverting it back away from the river. I was impressed by that.
Yeah,
We don't have
She
to
said
vote.
gravity flow.
there was a lot of pipeline ran through all the streets and everything and underneath. Looked great.
if it suits your schedule, planning, staff would like to request that the meeting that Debbie caused us to cancel, we'd like to reschedule that for the 27th of August. It's 2 weeks from today at 3 o'clock, if that suits you. We sent your packages out to you, so you wouldn't get a new package, just bring those packages with you, because we had a lot of things tracked in there for you and highlighted, and we'd like to go over that with you.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, okay.
Does that work for everyone, the 27th?
What day is that,
27th?
Tuesday?
A Tuesday, 2 weeks from today.
Okay.
That is,
The 27th, isn't it the election on that day?
Yeah, there's an election on that day.
Special election for that kind of
Yeah,
conversation.
yes, special election.
I knew that worked with the,
Tuesday before that would be
with our
fine.
consultant.
Tuesday before that would be fine.
Well, let me go ahead and tell you about this. I was going to tell you anyway. So next week on Thursday, we are having an informational open house meeting about the Broad River, the U-Haul Broad River planning area. That's going to be held at the Wheezy Pavilion at the Port Royal Sound Foundation at Lemon Island. Tara gave you, she put something at the diocese
Yeah, a little
tonight for
slip.
each of you. Just to let you know about that. We've sent letters out to everyone who is having their properties rezoned. We will be posting, she and I is going to spend the whole day in the field tomorrow posting properties. We won't get done tomorrow because it's 300. Well, we're able to, it's 300 parcels basically. We're able to group a few together, but it's still, I mean, we're having to take it section by section. So anyhow, we have notified the people, and we thought it'd be a great opportunity for them to be able to come, ask questions, look at the interactive map. We have a page dedicated online under the planning and building page. We have an interactive map. It's a slider, so you can see how it's zoned today and slide it and see how your property will be zoned tomorrow. All the ordinances we are proposing on that web page, but again, it just gives these people an opportunity to come, ask questions, because not everybody understands this stuff. So that's next week on Tuesday. We have council meeting on Monday. We have that on Tuesday night. You're more than welcome to come, even if you don't live in the area, if you'd like to come. So we did want to let you know about that. And that's why I didn't propose next week as a meeting, because I have council on Monday and then this on Thursday.
But this is two different things, two different days.
So then on September 19th,
Yeah, okay.
we're going to have our public hearing for that rezoning and those zoning map amendments, those zoning text changes that we're proposing. The reason we picked the Port Royal Sound Foundation, we needed to find a place that would hold at least 200 people. This room here will only hold 100. So, so we still have time before the public hearing to go through this. We just need to look at a different date now for,
Lisa, this says Thursday, August 22nd, not Tuesday.
that's right. That's Thursday, August 22nd.
And so what's Tuesday?
Nothing is that next Tuesday. We have council meeting on Monday.
Oh, okay.
Monday's council, Thursday's that. I have to come work during the day here, so having a third night, that's just a little rough, you know? Let me ask you this, it's just a special election? Do y'all feel like, I just know our last special election was like, you just walk in, vote, and leave. Do you feel like it's gonna be a hindrance to the meeting, or?
As long as we're
Not
not
to
in
me.
violation.
They'll have early voting.
Huh?
Won't they have early voting?
I guess, I haven't even kept up with it. I didn't realize it was the 27th.
It won't bother me personally.
Were y'all closed the last time you had a special election?
No, sir, not for the special election, only, not even for the primary. We only close for the general election.
What I thought.
We just didn't want to schedule our meeting on that election. We would avoid a primary, but usually the primary, you have a lot more people on the ballot. This is one person. So I don't know if, it's up to y'all. It's totally up to y'all. We can find another date, or
What date would that be?
Tuesday, the
Tuesday coming?
27th.
27th?
we were still talking about the 27th.
That's
Do you
fine
feel
with
like
me.
it would hinder you?
No, not me.
I won't be able to be.
Long as
You
send a
won't-
notice.
I work the special election.
You work the special election, okay.
So are they having early voting for that?
They still have precincts open, certain
No,
precincts.
no, I meant early voting. Do they have early voting for the special election?
I'm not sure.
No, okay.
Is the Wednesday the 28th or Monday the 26th? Is any of those days okay with you, or are those bad days?
26 would be fine.
The last week of the month, we don't have other meetings, so I could almost do any day that week.
I'm asking what the commissioner say.
26 fine with me that Monday.
Monday's probably a no-go for me.
And what you said the
What
other
about
date would be
Wednesday, I could probably work that.
Wednesday would be
And
fine.
then I think we have Thursday the 29th. For some reason, that day sounds familiar, but I don't know.
I could do it.
Wednesday would be fine, Lisa.
Wednesday,
29.
29? That's 29?
28th.
28?
28th?
That'd be fine. If it's all right with you.
All in favor of the 29th? Let it know by
28.
Quit.
28.
28.
28. All,
That's a Wednesday.
all in, okay.
Okay.
So that'll work for
Yes.
staff?
At
Yeah, I'm not
6?
sure about the consultant, but we'll get in touch with her tomorrow, let her know, and we'll get it worked out. I'm sure it will. So Wednesday the 28th.
Just a couple comments before we call for a motion to adjourn. We talked a lot about stormwater tonight. I can remember, I don't know how long ago, it was a committee appointed from the planning commission to work on the stormwater management for Jasper County. I know they've got some special funds to steady the stormwater management for the west side of Jasper County.
So we did get a brick grant. Are you referring to the brick grant?
Yes,
That's actually can be applied, stormwater, all of Jasper County.
yeah.
Jasper
But I
County
mean,
as
the
a whole.
whole county needs the studies, and this is something I'm asking all of you, let's push hard, because the outfall ditches and having the water to move hasn't been managed. The county not gonna be able to do it all at one time, but they got to start somewhere. And if we don't start, storm come like it was this weekend, we're gonna continue to have the problem that we had.
But you know, Mr. Pinckney, and maybe this is what you were talking about, but they haven't cleaned the major ditches out. Mr. Brown, Clinton Brown lives on Church Road. He's got one that runs right by his house, but water can't go anywhere because it's stopped up. They've got beavers that built dams, and they came out and said they couldn't get anybody to work
Our
to
neighbors,
run the equipment.
our neighbors cover theirs up.
The ditches,
Yeah,
So, I mean-
they'll put a inadequate pipe and just cover them up so they can drop it.
I mean, we got to scream about it and make it happen, because that have a screen effect on the value of property, and then it could ruin your property when the water's not managed, because water's power. It's gonna find a way to go somewhere.
Yes, sir.
And the other thing, like, young lady was just before us, 4 or 5 times. Any deficiency in the zoning ordinance, highlight it, you need to set workshop and fix it. We can't write it when an applicant is in front of us. We gotta do it before they submit their application.
I agree, Mr. Chairman. I really do. I agree. 100%.
Well, and where the zoning ordinance can't solve issues, like some of the things I had problems with, the zoning ordinance probably doesn't address, but there needs to be a design review board that absolutely could speak to open space, to proximity of sidewalks, driveway cuts, I mean, that sort of thing.
But why couldn't we address open space? I mean, that's, to me, improves the life of everybody living in that development. And I mean,
We do have in our ordinance like 10% of the.
10% open space, so they were showing that, but
they
they
were
were just showing a
27.
passive open space.
Yeah, and then they came back before us like she did tonight. By right, she was entitled to do it like.
But you could have asked for the
Open space.
active open space.
Yeah, I mean, there should be the definition of open space should be defined, and there should be like a minimum width. You shouldn't be able to count a 10-foot swath between 2 townhomes. I lived in one of those. It's terrible. When you can't control the neighborhood kid, not that it's anything on them, they're gonna find open space that they can find to play. But we should give them space to
so
play.
that's what I didn't understand, and I was gonna ask you, but then,
They were at 27.4%.
they were using the space between the houses?
Yes.
See, that's so
But not
wrong.
to get to their 10%.
They were-
That
they were
got
at
them, if you
27%.
read that number, it was like 5.5 acres of open space using the setbacks and all. The ordinance
See, they
does
should-
allow
they
that.
shouldn't be allowed.
But the zoning ordinance's intent of open space, and this is where it gets down to interpretation, it's just like the building code, it's interpretation. The interpretation of open space isn't to be little swaths
Right.
of land in between a road
Yes.
So they
and a
showed,
sidewalk.
so they had their stormwater pond, and then they had right in the middle, they had the wetland, there's just a natural wetland, and they designated all this other area around it as a conservation area. But anyhow, that whole entire middle section was like 1.25 acres, I believe it was. And then at the front, they do have those nice buffers, and I am glad to see it pushed back. I mean, there was room in the front for a playground. I don't know if you really want your children out by the road. I probably wouldn't, unless it's fenced in and it's secure, I don't know. But
I'm not so much about a playground as I am open green space,
and then in the back, when you got beyond the area there was a wider area that went all the way
It was
through.
a drainage easement, is what they called it on the.
They did.
There actually, that could have provided for like a pocket park, or what you kind of see at the next door, what's the name of that one?
30 feet wide. There's a 30-foot.
Oakity Park.
So like I said, maybe we plan twice a year, have workshop, that we'll know exactly what we're gonna propose on them and make it in our regulations and rules. So it'll be easy when the applicant come before. They'll know before they come, if you don't have it, you're not gonna get approved.
And,
I don't think it should have took that lady 8 years to get what she got.
So this preliminary approval, Mr. Chairman Pinckney as the chairman, he'll sign off on just the construction plans, as nothing's being recorded, it's just the construction plans. And they will move forward with, and we'll make sure we have everything before we do that. We'll call you when we have everything. And then they'll be able to construct the infrastructure. They'll need to come back when they're done for a final plat in order to get it recorded. And at that time, I will personally make a note on here, just in this file. I've already asked for the covenant. She said they were being reviewed, but when they come back for final, we'll make sure that they're bringing the covenants, that their road maintenance agreements executed, it was all signed and all, but it's just not recorded. And all of those things And I had told her during our plan reviews, okay, planning commission may ask you for active open space, because they're big on that.
Well,
That and sidewalks.
I wish that had registered, I would have said that.
I understand our regulation. When they written this, the reason why it was so restricted, you know, a lot happened in the last 10 years. At one point, it wasn't a lot of growth.
Right.
And we was pro-growth because we needed the tax base. Now we got some tax base, we want to get more restricted. So you have to understand where we come from, and these things not going to happen at a snap of a finger. It's going to happen gradually. But we need to work on things to don't let things get out of hand before we do something. If there's no other discussion, I'm ready to entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we stand adjourned to our next scheduled meeting.
Thank you. We'll see y'all on the 28th.
Yes.